tomorrow.
All right, let's bring in Congresswoman Elise, chairman of the House Republican Conference, member of the House Intelligence Committee and Armed Services Committee. Welcome, Congresswoman. Good
morning.
Now you're officially in leadership in that position. As we look at the State of the Union tonight, how often do you think you'll be standing?
Well, certainly that's up to Joe Biden, and I don't think Joe Biden is going to be reaching across the aisle. I think he's going to try to lecture House Republicans and, frankly, double down on his failed far-left policies that we've seen for the last 2 years, whether it's the trillions of dollars of reckless spending that have caused this debt crisis, or whether it's the border crisis, which we just heard from Griff. House Republicans are going to highlight our commitment to America in the guests we bring. So you will see Border Patrol families, you will see law enforcement. I'm inviting a local county sheriff from Montgomery County from my district to highlight the crime crisis and important laws that House Republicans want to pass in order to support our law enforcement and address the crime crisis on our streets. But, you know, this is not my first State of the Union hearing from Joe Biden. He tends to double down on his failed far-left policies.
It's going to be interesting because Kevin McCarthy will be sitting behind him. We're used to Nancy Pelosi sitting there, and we all remember during Trump when she ripped up the State of the Union. We want to ask you, too, about this Chinese spy flight because he says he's not changing his speech. Do you think that he should? Does he need to address this?
He absolutely needs to address this, Ainsley. I sit on the House Intelligence Committee and the House Armed Services Committee, a senior member on both of those committees. And the fact that Joe Biden, he abysmally failed in terms of handling this as the commander-in-chief. We're talking about our #1 adversary in the 21st century going into our sovereign airspace. And what is very concerning is this administration and Joe Biden had no intention of telling the American people until an everyday American pointed it out. He abysmally failed to address this, and that is sending a signal of weakness to communist China. We need to assert strength. We need to assert peace through strength, which is why House Republicans are going to stand up for peace through strength when it comes to our defense policies. This is part of the reason that we started the Select China Committee, which is bipartisan, by the way, because we believe this needs to be an American priority, not a partisan one. This should unify, and it does unify everyday Americans who know that a rising China is an adversary for the United States of America.
Well, you say he should talk about it. He says, nope, not going to do it. Here he is yesterday. Watch.
You've known about the balloon program for some time. Has it always been your view to shoot down a Chinese spy balloon, or was it only because it became public?
Oh, no, it was always my position. Once it came over to into the United States from Canada, I told the Defense Department I wanted to shoot it down as soon as it was appropriate.
Does this change?
They concluded we should not shoot it down over land. It was not a serious threat, and we should wait till it got across the water.
Does this change your speech tomorrow night, sir, and your foreign policy message?
You know, Congresswoman, it's interesting. There's a story in the Washington Post that reveals that apparently when Joe Biden came into office, they changed how they classify different things. And it wasn't until after these things left the airspace that the Pentagon was told, oh, by the way, those were China. But isn't it curious? Apparently nobody at the Pentagon told President Trump what was going on. You got to wonder, maybe the people at the Pentagon were thinking, you know, if we tell him, he's going to shoot it down, and we don't want him to shoot it down.
Well, there's a lot more questions that need to be answered, which is why it's so important to have briefings for members of Congress. Speaker Kevin McCarthy has demanded a briefing, not just for congressional leadership, but for all members. And certainly the committees on which I serve, the Intelligence Committee and Armed Services Committee, we're going to ask many, many tough questions. Again, as we think about a rising China in terms of being a top adversary for the United States in the 21st century, we need to make sure that we have an understanding of what information were they collecting, what intel was this Chinese spy balloon collecting, and why did we even allow it to enter our sovereign airspace? Again, China is watching, our adversaries are watching, and they have seen weakness from day one from Joe Biden as commander-in-chief. I think this actually goes back to the catastrophic Afghanistan withdrawal. Both Russia and China were watching that weakness, and they are trying to assert their strength to take advantage of that weakness. We need to return to the effective policies, frankly, that we saw under President Trump and Republican leadership when we had a strong commander-in-chief.
We also wanted to ask you about Thursday, because I know this is the first hearing for the subcommittee on political weaponization of the federal government. Are you going after, I know you're calling witnesses, there'll be witnesses from both sides. Is this to talk about agencies, government agencies who particularly targeted conservatives?
It's a great question, Ainsley. So I think this will be some of the most important work of the House Republican majority. This is about transparency and shining a spotlight. So this first open hearing is to set the tables. If you talk to everyday Americans, they are deeply concerned that federal agencies are targeting hardworking Americans and that there's two sets of rules. If you happen to have the last name Clinton or Biden, crimes are brushed under the rug. We've seen how the FBI and the Department of Justice have not addressed Hunter Biden's clear crimes, and yet at the same time, they are targeting conservatives and Republicans because of your political beliefs. We see that in their targeting of parents. We see that in their targeting of whistleblowers in their own agencies who raise concerns. So this is going to set the tables that this is an issue, this is important to address, and we are going to leave no stone unturned. I believe this is going to lead to bombshell reports, the work of this subcommittee, and ultimately legislative reforms.
Yeah, you need those whistleblowers, those FBI agents we hear so much about that evidently have a story to tell, and they've already gotten to some retribution on them already. So hopefully we'll get a chance to see them. Congresswoman Stefanik, well, look for it. It's going to be a long day for you. Thanks for joining us this morning.
Thank you.
Thank you.
She'll be the first one in the office today.
That's true.
In
She's
early.
up early.